Hi, I'm Jace. Kids always say they want to be doctors or lawyers or pilots when they grow up. Nobody ever says, "Yo, I want to be a real estate agent one day." Well, that exception was me. Somehow watching my mom watch all those renovation and house flipping shows really made an impact on me. And from such a young age, I knew what I wanted to become. In my head, I'd go out there, get my license, and I'd be selling houses left and right. Well, the real world isn't as easy as TV makes it look. I ended up in sort of a dead-end job with the worst boss in the world. Karen was... well, she's the embodiment of her name. She shouted at her employees and demanded the world out of anyone, even strangers she'd meet on the street. Her favorite catchphrase was typical to someone with her name. "I want to speak to the manager." She also sported the perfect Karen hairstyle. And honestly, the only time I'd ever seen her smile was when she was trying to sell to a client. Karen would turn on her charm to 100 to sell a house. Nobody who worked for Karen liked her one bit. One day we all decided we'd pull a prank on her. See, Karen needed her iced coffee. She made sure to tell everyone her iced coffee was essential to her survival. And so my colleagues and I thought, why don't we take that one thing away from her like she always takes our commissions? Yeah, that's right. Karen takes her employees' commissions. Anytime somebody got a sale, Karen would funnel that money back to herself and make up some stupid excuse. So, every morning, my friends and I would magically make her iced coffee disappear. We always knew which tumbler she used because it was the bright pink one with pictures of cats all around it. The first time it happened, Karen thought she must have just misplaced it. But then it kept happening every single morning. Karen would go to the office fridge to look for her iced coffee, only to find her empty tumbler deposited in the office kitchen, fully empty. Karen eventually caught on that someone was pulling her leg. Our biggest mistake was starting with it all, because we awakened the sleeping dragon. The next week, when it happened again, Karen went off her rocker. "Is anyone going to admit to stealing my coffee?" "No." "Okay. If I'm not having any drinks today, no one will." She started screaming, ripping everyone's drinks out of the fridge and dumping them in the sink. Then she took the water cooler and slammed it on the floor, flooding the office and breaking the water cooler in her rage. She made us pay for a replacement, too. Ugh. She then started messing with people's food. None of us had lunch that week because as soon as we got to work and deposited our packed lunch in the fridge, Karen plugged it out. And in the humid heat of summer in tropical Florida, our food all went bad. She then blamed it on all of us when the office began to stink. And she made us pay for repairing the fridge and hiring professional cleaners to make the place smell nice again. We decided enough was enough. I volunteered to confront Karen about her worsening attitude towards us. But it didn't go as planned. You cut our pay. You steal our commission, and now you're making us pay for stuff you are responsible for to begin with. We're not your servants, Karen. And if you don't like it, go find a manager to speak about it. We are not taking this anymore. Good luck finding agents who will work for you, because everyone in town knows who you really are. I stood up from my desk and was ready for the mass walkout we'd planned. Except... nobody else stood up. Who's with me? Come on! I looked at the guy I'd share a desk with for 5 years, and he couldn't even bring himself to look at me. "I'm sorry, bud. I got kids. A wife. I can't just be jobless. The job market's terrible out there. But we talked about this. We're gonna work for... Work for who, Jace? Do you think anyone would hire a disgraced agent once everyone hears about this failed coup you attempted? in my office. Go ahead. The door's wide open. But don't you dare come crawling back when you finally realize nobody wants to hire you. I didn't even get to bring home my stuff from my desk. Karen called building security on me, and they pushed me out of there as if I was a homeless intruder. Oh, Karen was right. I couldn't find a job. The economy was doing worse by the day, and every single place I applied at simply was full. I had to dip into my savings. But then weeks turned to months, and I simply couldn't afford providing for 2 people who lived in a fancy suburban house. My girlfriend left the moment she realized I was out of options, and even more out of cash. I begged her to stay, begged her to believe in me. But at that point, even I'd lost belief in myself. I'd almost lost my mortgage. I had 2 days to pay, and the bank would have repossessed. But something happened that turned my fortunes around. I saw a man struggling to cross the road with his dog. The dog saw me and immediately jumped into action. She just wanted to say hi to a stranger. Unfortunately, she did not understand that the road was filled with cars. She pulled too hard on her leash and it broke, and she dashed straight towards me just as a speeding car was about to pass. I had seconds to act. I jumped into the road and caught her just in time. I rolled to safety, and the man driving the car gave me an earful. But in the end, he understood that I was only trying to save the old man's dog.
Thank you for saving my little girl, son.
It's really nothing, sir. I'm sure anyone would have done the same.
That's the thing. Hardly anyone will. No, not even my own children would have done for me what you just did. In fact, I imagine they'd have pushed me onto the streets as well. For good measure.
That can't be true.
But it is. See, I'm old and I've lived a full life. I have a bit of money saved up, and I thought, I needed to get stuff in order and see which one of my kids deserved to inherit it. And they all failed. Utterly and completely failed. I told them that I was sick and only a few months to live. They immediately fought like piranhas, destroyed each other's lives and families over some spare change. My eldest daughter ruined her own brother's marriage by photoshopping him with tons of women. That son ruined my youngest son's career by leaking fake news to the press. And the youngest, well, he unleashed a plague on his sister's rose garden. A literal plague of locusts. Destroyed my eldest's most cherished plants in less than a day. It was a civil war in my own home, and eventually they all turned on me, hired some big-shot lawyers, and banished me from my own home. What they didn't know was that I wasn't really sick, and the money they took was just the tip of the iceberg. And now I'm out here, living on my own with all this money and nobody to give it to. Until you saved the one living being who has been loyal to me all these years. My little Luna.
What? Me? I'm a stranger. I mean, it's flattering that you do that, but why don't you just give it to some charity? I'm no one.
Exactly. You're nobody to me, and I'm nobody to you. And yet, you showed me more kindness than those people who are supposed to be the closest to me. I can tell you're special, and you deserve to live a special life.
No matter how much I tried to reject the old man's gratitude, he kept shoving his money at me. The next morning, I got a notification from my bank. I had $228 in there last I checked, And when I opened my app, I almost fell to the floor. I called my bank and asked them to reverse it. 2 weeks it happened where the old man would send me his money and I'd get it back to him. I had no idea even how he got a hold of my banking details. But by the second week, my banker just pulled out his hair and told me to just take the money in peace. So he could live in peace. I never found the old man again. I wanted to give it back to him in person, but he only contacted me again through a written letter delivered by his lawyer. The letter reads, Jace, stop trying to give me back the money. I've made certain that you will never be able to. I've moved to a hidden mountain in the south of Italy. I'm off the grid and nobody else knows where I am. If you're really intent on giving back what the universe has blessed you with, you'll have to use that money to come and find me. But take my advice. Live your life. And live it to the fullest. The money is yours, and one day, when you've done enough living, come find me and tell me the stories of the things you got up to. I took the old man's advice. I built up my own real estate and travel agency from scratch. I gave some to charity. I hired the best people and built an empire for myself. In no time, I beat Karen's agency in sales and reach. Everyone in the state came to me for their real estate and travel needs. Meanwhile, I made sure I got all of Karen's clients to transfer to me. And when my old colleagues who betrayed me tried to beg me for work, I had the perfect response. Sorry, bud. The economy's bad, and I couldn't afford to hire any more people. I proceeded to hire even more people the exact same day. I put up a billboard for my agency right in front of Karen's office. It tickled me to know that every morning she'd go to work and see a huge photo of me smiling down at her. I even put up an ad on the bench at the bus stop directly across from her house. That way she could never escape my smiling face. Maybe it was too much, but I just wanted her to always see that she was wrong. And I wanted her to be jealous of the success that I found. 10 years later, after I'd done all the things I wanted, got married, and traveled to places I only ever dreamed about, I went to Italy. It took a year of asking around and hiking, but I eventually found the old man. It was for the first time I actually introduced myself. And the first time I found out his name was Jim. Jim and I had a lovely afternoon exchanging stories. And he laughed so hard he fell off his chair when I told him about the time when I listed Karen's house for sale for just $20. And she woke up one morning to find 100 people mistakenly there for an opera house she didn't ask for.